Okay, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Eric, the Techie Agent here, and wanted to kind of discuss with you guys my thoughts on what I think is a new direction for Apple that became pretty apparent with the release of their latest release of iPhones, the iPhone XR, the iPhone XR, the iPhone XS, and the iPhone XS Max. So, and again, just wanted to comment the audio on this. I'll adjust the volume here on this microphone. The audio on this is going to be a little bit off from the live stream because I'm using a higher end microphone to try to get audio that's decent. There's going to be a little bit of lag between the audio and the video. So you just have to bear with me on that. And in terms of comments, I'll get comments or questions. I'll get to that here soon. I have my brother Matt kind of monitoring the comments here behind the scenes. So if there's any sort of technical issues that you guys are experiencing, just leave a comment and then Matt will let me know. But so anyways, yeah, I wanted to talk about the new direction of Apple that became apparent to me with the release of their new iPhones. So the first one is I think that the new iPhone XR was a massive disappointment for me personally. And if you see my parody video that I just uploaded earlier this morning, I kind of talk about a little bit of in that I kind of allude to some of my disappointment. And for the record, I'm a big Apple fanboy. Within my family, I have an iPad. My wife has an iPad. Both of my kids have iPads. I have an iPhone. I have another iPhone on order. This is being streamed right now through an iMac. I have an Apple TV. So I have an Apple Watch. I have the new Apple Watch on order. So I am an Apple fanboy by just about any definition. That being said, I was kind of disappointed with the iPhone XR, and here's why. Let me get to my talking points here. They got rid of the Force Touch. So that's a feature that not a lot of people use, but I do use, and that's a feature that's gone back now several generations of the iPhone, and for them to just kind of drop that because it's too expensive, that was disappointing, especially for a $750 phone. I mean, $750 is flagship phone prices on Android. And so for Apple to be releasing a $750 phone and not including something as basic as Force Touch, to me was a disappointment. Additionally, they've dropped the home button. For some people, that's an issue or not, depending if you really like the fingerprint scanner technology. But they've gotten rid of the home button. Still no headphone jack, right? That's kind of an old joke at this point. But no HD screen. As a matter of fact, here's I had to go back and look this up because I wanted to find out, the pixels per inch that are on the new iPhone XR. Wanted to go back and find out how long it's been since Apple has been releasing the same pixels per inch that it's just got released on the iPhone XR. So you have to go back all the way 10 years ago to the release of the iPhone 4. When they released the iPhone 4, it was 326 pixels per inch, the exact same pixel density of the iPhone XR. So in 10 years, Apple has not improved on their pixels per inch, on their PPI density. That's just absolutely absurd to me, that in 10 years that Apple hasn't improved on 2018 phones beyond the same pixel density that they had 10 years ago in 2010 for the iPhone 4. That's just unbelievable to me when you can go get Android phones now for $400 that have 2K screens, right? That have significantly higher pixels per inch than the current generation iPhone XR. And in my opinion, the direction that Apple is taking has shifted, and not just with the iPhone XR, but then also it became evident with the iPhone XS and the XS Max. So those are great phones. I actually really do like the iPhone XS and the XS Max. I think that those are top-notch phones. They're expensive as shit, and so there's that. I'm not one to want to spend laptop prices for a phone, even though I'm an Apple fanboy. So they're super duper ridiculously expensive. The iPhone XS Max, when it's spec'd out, is about $1,500. Plus, you're going to put a case on that and pay taxes. So you're going to end up spending, over $1,500 to get a spec'd out iPhone at this point, which that's just absolutely insane. You can go get MacBook Pros, low-end MacBook Pros from this last year for the same price. That's just crazy. But price aside, right, I do like the iPhone XS and the XS Max, but Apple is not doing what they used to do, a la Steve Jobs, where they would cannibalize their old product lines. So here's what I mean. Apple used to cannibalize old products. So for example, when they released the iPhone and it was a camera, it was a phone, and it was a music player, they knew that they were cannibalizing their iPods. iPods were huge sellers for Apple. They knew that with this new technology, with the iPhone, that they were going to completely cannibalize the sales of their own product line, the iPod, because people were just going to, instead of buying an iPod, they would just buy an iPhone, and then it's all of those things in one. And but Steve Jobs was happy to do that. He was happy to release a product that innovated, and that innovation was so great and so good that it would render an old product worthless. That's what Steve Jobs would do. Release something so great, so good that everybody wanted to have, that nobody wanted the old product. They would cannibalize old product lines. That was what Apple was known for. And some people hated Apple for that. I thought it was awesome, right? And when you're releasing products that are so good, so compelling, so innovative that it renders an old product worthless, that means you're doing something awesome and great and innovative as a company. Apple's gotten away from that, right? Because here's what's happened with this new product lineup with the iPhone XR, the XS, and the XS Max. iPhone has quit production and sales on their own website of a phone that they made just 9 months ago, the iPhone X. Why? You have to ask yourself, why are they doing that, right? Why are they? Is it because the iPhone X is no longer a worthwhile phone? Well, no. Actually, the new products haven't cannibalized the old products like they did back in the day. Old products are still so desirable that Apple knew that people would look at the iPhone XR, the XS, and the XS Max and say, why do I want to spend money for this? I'm just going to go get a discounted iPhone X that has almost with just a little bit less features than the new products. And I'm just going to buy that at a significant discount. And I'm going to buy the iPhone X instead. They knew that that's what would happen. So they had to quit selling it on their website. They had to quit production of it because the old product would cannibalize the new products. People would prefer the old products over the new products, as opposed to the new products cannibalizing the old products. So when that happens, when old products become more desirable than the new products, when old products are cannibalizing the new products, then you're no longer innovating. You're no longer a company that's pushing the agenda. You're no longer a company, in my opinion, that has a good trajectory in terms of providing something to that's innovative and exciting to the consumers. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. And so much so that, like, when I saw these new offerings, I'm still rocking an old iPhone 7 Plus here. I've had it for a couple of years, and so I'm like, it's time for me to upgrade. I saw these new offerings, I saw the price, and then I hopped on Swappa and saw a new in-box iPhone X for $665. So I bought an iPhone X for $665, and it has, honestly, virtually every feature, just about, that the iPhone XS has or the XS Max has. It's arguably a better phone. It has a higher pixels per inch. It's got dual camera setup, so it's a better phone than the iPhone XR, and it's cheaper. And so that's exact. And what was interesting is when I was on Swappa trying to buy iPhone X immediately after the launch of the new iPhones, I was trying to buy iPhone X, and I would go to buy it, and then it would say somebody else has already clicked on this and is currently purchasing this. So I'd go find another one, click on it to buy it. Somebody else is already purchasing this. So what happened was consumers hopped on Swappa.com immediately after the iPhone announcements and were like, screw the new phones. I'm going to go buy an iPhone X for my upgrade. That's a problem for Apple. Old products are now cannibalizing the new products instead of the other way around. And so that's a direction that Apple has taken with their iPhone lineup, at least, that in my opinion is not good. I was just talking to a very tech savvy a guy who works in the tech industry right now, and he talked about how he personally was going back to a spec'd out older generation MacBook Pro because he got tired of carrying around dongles, USB-C dongles to connect all of his peripherals on the new MacBook Pro. So he traded in a brand new iMac Pro to go back to an older iMac Pro that was spec'd out, where he didn't have to deal with the hassles of buying $30, $80 dongles to connect all of the different equipment and tech that he needed to connect to. So that's a problem for Apple, right? When old products begin to cannibalize the new products, that means that you're not innovating anymore. You're actually creating products that are not as desirable as the old products, and that you're not listening to consumers. Anyways,
Don wants to know if you think the new f-stop adjustment and post-processing is innovative enough.
So if the new f-stop, so I think that's a great feature. I think it's that the new f-stop feature is a really cool feature. But to me, I'm like, okay, getting an iPhone XS or XS Max that has the new f-stop feature and that is only 15% faster than the iPhone X, is it worth paying for me an additional $400, right? I can buy the iPhone X for $665 from Swappa, or I can spend over $1,000 to get 15% faster processor with a new camera feature. Those features aren't worth $400 to me, not to me personally. It's not worth having an app that opens at 1.7 seconds instead of 2 seconds. Like, I don't care. Or to have that f-stop feature. And so, that's what I have to say about that. Like, old products are just going to cannibalize at this point. Old products are cannibalizing new Apple products. So that's a problem. Let me look at my talking points here, see if there's anything else I wanted to hit. But yeah, and so again, I'm an Apple fanboy. I think that the new iPhone XS and XS Max are great. My concern for Apple is that this trajectory is that they're not innovating enough, and that they're having to pull off their own store old products because Apple knows that those old products are going to be more desirable than their new product. Apple's never done that. Apple has never announced new iPhones and then conveniently pulled off their store old iPhones in order to force you to buy the new ones, right? They've always just kind of announced the new ones and then said, and hey, last year's model, we're marking it down, X amount of dollars. So if you wanted to go buy an old product, you could, right? That's always been Apple's MO. They would announce a new product, and oh, by the way, for those of you who, don't need the latest and greatest, here's our old product at a reduced price. Apple didn't do that with the iPhone X, right? They just pulled it off. They quit producing it. They quit making it. They quit selling it. You can't even buy a refurbished unit on their website, because Apple knew if we mark down the price of this iPhone X, it's going to cannibalize the sales of our new product lineups, and we don't want to do that. And Apple knew that. That's why, for the first time, they didn't mark down the iPhone X and just announce it. And oh, hey, by the way, the iPhone X is now $700 or something like that. So that's my concern with the trajectory of Apple. And so what I'm going to do now is, if you give me a second, I'm going to hop on my own live stream on a third-party account, and I'll answer some of your questions as they come in.
I see how smart turns off.
I'm getting an ad for my own video here. Shaquille O'Neal for you. All right, we'll mute this. So, okay, I'm going to take a look at some of your questions here. My friend pre-ordered Paul is saying, my friend pre-ordered the 10 the day it was announced. He just sent me a screenshot of his pre-order for the XS Max for over $1,500. I have no idea how people can justify spending that annually. Well, exactly, and the people can't. People can't spend $1,000 or $1,500 annually, or even every other year, or even every 2 or 3 years, right? And so that's why Apple is having to go back and pull off the shelves or all the stock of the iPhone Xs and the iPhone X refurbished units and just don't sell them anymore. Because they know that the old phones are going to cannibalize their new lineup. Kendra, good to see Kendra on here. She says, I really like Apple. When I was using Android phones, I had way too many choices. Yeah, I mean, so Apple does create a kind of simplicity, right? They just make a great product that really does fit the needs of a very large demographic of people. That being said, the demographic is going to shrink if they're making it cost prohibitive to buy an iPhone. Like when you're getting to the place of where your new offerings are costing $1,000 and people are having to spend $1,000 every other year or every year in order to have a current generation phone, then you're eventually going to you're going to have a narrower and narrower market. The middle class, when you have the middle class bitching about the price of the iPhone, that's a problem. Like like in my opinion, like the sweet spot would be to create products that are appealing to the middle class people being able to buy them. And so, when you've priced yourself out of the middle class and now you're like an upper middle class or like the lower upper class, and that's the only demographic that can really afford your technology, then that's a problem long term. So let me see if I can go back and look at any of these other comments here. Ronnie is saying, I'm currently using a Gear Sport by Samsung, and I really have to say that even though the heart rate tracking is far off sometimes, it still does a better job than my previous Ionic and the Vivoactive HR. Cool. And you know what? To that end, I kind of piggybacking or pivoting off of that, talking about wearables, I love what Apple has done with the new Apple Watch Series 4. That is an area where I actually feel like the new product is cannibalizing the old products. So, for example, Apple really did innovate with the Series 4. It's an all-new design, a larger screen, flatter body, so it looks a little bit more just aesthetically pleasing. And then it's got the ECG sensor, which for a fitness enthusiast as myself, that is truly innovative. That is something that nobody else has done. Nobody else has an ECG sensor on a wearable that's FDA approved. No one. And so Apple is making the Apple Series 4 for at least fitness enthusiasts so compelling that it renders like my desire for the Apple Watch Series 3. I'm like, this is trash now. I have to go get the new Apple Watch Series 4. So that is what innovation looks like, right? When you release something that's so compelling that you've cannibalized the previous generation product. That's what Apple has done, in my opinion, with the Apple Watch Series 4, but I feel like they haven't done that with some of their other products. Got some more comments in here from Mr. Luigi. The bottom line, the innovation slope and huge price increases of the iPhone has decreased to the point where I consider the iPhone a once every 4-year purchase. On the other hand, innovation in the Apple Watch is a steeper, and I remain excited about getting the new Apple Watch every year and selling my used one. What do you think? Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now too. Who can afford to get an iPhone or the latest and greatest iPhone every year or even every other year? I mean, because we're at a price point now where it's $1,000, right? So even if you're getting an iPhone every other year, that means you're spending over $500 a year for an iPhone. That's just crazy. So maybe every 3 years, right? So maybe you're spreading it out. So it's like, well, I'm spending about $300, or a little bit more than $300. Because even if you spread it out like $1 a day, an iPhone over the course of 3 years, $1 a day, it's like, are you willing to spend like $30 a month for 3 years to have the latest and greatest, and then just do that every 3 years? I guess Apple is saying that that's what they assume people will do. But here's the other thing too, right? With Apple's prices, people will be able to afford their phones less frequently. So again, to Mr. Luigi's point, every 3 or 4 years you buy a new iPhone, as opposed to having prices that are just low enough where you're like, I can justify it every year or two. And then they have these reoccurring sales, right? You've got a steady stream of clients, as opposed to having prices that are so astronomical where you slow down your sales, where you actually slow down the sales enough where it's like, well, I only need a phone now every 3 or 4 years, or I can only afford a phone every 3 or 4 years. So the sales slow down. And so with these new prices, I'm very interested to see over, the span of the next 2 to 5 years, if Apple is selling fewer products because people are holding on to them longer because they were so damn expensive. So that'll be an interesting thing to see, if I'm right or not. So someone's commenting here, I hate the fact that the ECG sensor on the Apple Watch Series 4 is not available outside the US. It's really not worth the upgrade for people outside the US, and it's a main feature of the Apple Watch 4. That's true, right? So, and my understanding is not only is it not going to be available outside the US, or it'll be disabled outside the US, at least for some places outside of the US, that the feature won't be, I think, immediately available upon release. So I had to get up at 3 a.m. last night because I'm on a different time zone, but I had to get up at 3 a.m. to order my Apple Watch Series 4 to make sure I bought it in case they sold out. So I bought mine last night, and it should be here in about 9 or 10 days or so. But I think it's the 21st, September 21st is when they ship, or it should arrive. But I think that when they ship, that ECG sensor might be disabled because Apple kind of alluded to that in their keynote. They talked about how that feature was going to be enabled or coming soon, like in sometime in October or November later this year. So they kind of made it seem like they were still working through some of the details of the ECG sensor, like it might not be activated, or the software side might not be quite ready at launch. So there could be some firmware updates coming to the Apple Watch Series 4 that enable the ECG sensor. I would not be surprised if the ECG sensor is not activated, on the release date. So we'll find that out here shortly. But anyways, let me go back to the stream here and see if I got any other questions coming in. Yeah, those are my thoughts. I just wanted to hop on here real quick and just kind of give you guys my thoughts about the trajectory of Apple and how I feel like old products have now cannibalized the new products. The iPhone 10 is so desirable that Apple had to remove it off of their shelves and stop selling it, as opposed to the new products cannibalizing the old products because the new products are so awesome. So that marks a huge shift in Apple's marketing strategy compared to when Steve Jobs was around. And I have to think that Steve Jobs would be pissed if at the thought of old products being more desirable than the new releases. I have to think that Steve would be really upset at the new strategy and direction, because that was never the way that Apple used to do things. Let me see if there's any last comments here, and then I'll let you guys know. Oh, we got Peppers544. Good to see him on here. What happened to the blood glucose test the Apple Watch 3 was supposed to have? I don't know. I know that Apple is constantly filing patents. They were looking not only at the blood glucose test, but they were supposedly also testing blood pressure as well, like sensors that could get really, really good estimates of your blood pressure without actually being like a blood pressure cuff. They were looking at sensors that could do that. So they've filed patents already for the technology, but we probably won't see that for another year or two. We probably won't see that until future generation Apple Watches. That's what Apple does. They'll file a patent for something. Everybody will get really excited, like, oh my gosh, it's going to be coming to the new iPhone, and it doesn't. Like one of the patents, I think, was an under the screen fingerprint scanner. So there's the idea of like, well, hey, maybe this new iPhone will actually have a fingerprint scanner under the glass because of these Apple patents. And it didn't show up, and it may still show up at some future point, but maybe that'll be a future device. Who knows? Or maybe it's an idea that Apple patented, but then scrapped later on. So who knows? Don is asking, what would be true innovation for you? I don't know. That's a great question. One of the things that Steve Jobs, or the era of Steve Jobs, was always really good at doing is showing people a product that they hadn't conceptualized before, but it was a product that they suddenly had to have, right? It was like Steve Jobs could somehow crawl inside of people's brains and show them something that they wanted that they didn't know they wanted before. So again, like the release of the original iPod, or the release of the original iPhone. Like, hey, we've got this phone. It's a phone. It's a camera. It's a video camera, and it's an iPod all in one. You didn't know you needed it before. You thought you were fine with just your flip phone and your iPod, and that was all you needed. And nobody could conceptualize kind of putting the two together. Steve Jobs did. And then everybody was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. That's exactly what I want. How innovative. Like I have to buy this new iPhone. That was kind of the innovation strategy of Steve Jobs, of being able to like look into the market and conceptualize something that nobody else could. And so I guess that's like where I'm at, like with Apple. It's like if they could begin to kind of tap into that old mojo that they had, where they could look at people's lives and say, hey, here's a new tool and new features that we could actually add to these products, and make them so enticing and innovative that we've cannibalized old versions of our own products. That to me would be fantastic. Or at the very least, it's like, if you're going to do these modest upgrades on the iPhone XR, the iPhone XS, the iPhone XS Max, at least make the price point a little bit more accessible, right? If you're not going to do anything amazing, nothing really innovative, nothing really great, at least make it enticing. So for example, if the new iPhone XS had been priced at, let's say, $799, right? $800, the same price that what's your phone, Matt?
The S9.
The Galaxy S9. Like when it launched, everybody's like, oh, that's expensive. Here's the Galaxy S9. It's $800. If they had released the iPhone XS at $800, I would be looking at the iPhone X and saying, $665 for that, or for, a little bit more than $100 more, I can get the brand new iPhone. I would probably say, like, it's worth spending the extra $130, $140 to get the new iPhone. I probably would have done that. But instead, it's like, well, it's not $140 more, it's $400 more. So now I have a real question that I have to answer. And so that's kind of where I'm at too. If Apple is not going to do something innovative, then at least make the price like something that's not ridiculously absurd. So those are my thoughts. Let me go back here and see if there's any other last questions.
Innovation should be something that makes the quality of life better.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So Matt's saying innovation should be something that makes the quality of life better. And that's what they did again with I keep going back to the old original iPhone, but it consolidated devices. Here's your phone, here's your iPod. We put them together. It's the iPhone. And that's like what Apple could do. Apple could look at ways in which we're already using other tech products, and then figure out a way to pack those features and pack that tech into the new iPhone. That's what they've done with the Apple Watch, right? What are people wanting? Well, they're wanting more accurate heart rate tracking. They're wanting stuff that can track heart arrhythmia and maybe detect for irregular heartbeats and stuff like that. We're going to add an ECG sensor to the new iPhone Series 4. That's innovation. It's adding value to their clients. I don't know that for me, adding depth of field and 15% faster phone is enough of a value for me to spend an additional $400 compared to what I can spend for the iPhone X. So they're not providing enough value to entice me to actually spend my money. And that's a problem when I'm an Apple fanboy. When I have a dozen Apple products here in my house, and I'm not willing to spend my money when I don't see the value, and I'm a big fan of Apple and I don't see the value, that should raise red flags for Apple. So those are my thoughts. So I read on Reddit that the new phones aren't going to have the headphone adapter. Thoughts? Yeah. So I think it's silly, right? I think it's like, why not just put an iPhone jack in there? If it's really a matter of space, just make the phone like a little bit damn bigger. Add put an iPhone, or put a headphone jack in there. I think that shipping without an adapter, that sucks, because I know I use my adapter. I know that I work for I collaborate with another company to do some video for them, and one of the ways that they do miking is they'll put an adapter on their phone and they'll run some audio software on their phone, and then run a lapel mic run a lapel mic that's pinned to their shirt, and run that audio into their phone and record it, and then we sync all the audio after the fact, so that way we don't have to go spend tons of money having wireless mic systems. We can just use the iPhone. And we've had to buy a bunch of adapters for everybody. And so if they don't ship with the adapter, that's kind of lazy on Apple's part. That being said, like I have transitioned, definitely. I've been forced to transition because I don't have an iPhone jack or a headphone jack. I've been forced to transition to Bluetooth headphones. I have a very expensive, like a $400 pair of Sony headphones that are just amazing and sound great and have like ridiculously long battery life. And so I don't have to worry so much about the cord. But that being said, it would still be nice occasionally to have a headphone jack still. And I'm a little bit over that. That's not my biggest complaint with Apple at this point. The headphone jack, like, that's old news. I'm not too concerned about that. My concern more is about the overall direction of Apple in terms of how their lack of innovation or lack of offering value. And they know that, and that's why they're pulling old products like the iPhone 10 off the shelf, because old products are cannibalizing new products as opposed to new products cannibalizing the old, from the days, a la the days of Steve Jobs. So that's all I got for you guys, I guess. I'm going to go over here and end this stream. It's been going on for a long time, and I appreciate everybody who was watching. So, hey guys, thanks for watching. My name is Eric, and I'm the Techie